household level. So under the late comrade Perez Shiri, who was Minister of Agriculture before Comrade Masuka, we introduced Pfumvudza. Pfumvudza is designed to provide food security at the household level, at the village level, at the community level, and that we've achieved. Kana kune imba kana muri inotadza kuguta inenge isingatevedzeri Pfumvudza. Ukangotevedza zvinodikanwa paPfumvudza, imba iyoyo muri nemuri munoguta. So the role of government is to provide inputs at that level, so that each household is given adequate seed and fertilizer for the Pfumvudza plots at the village or household level. And I'm happy that it is a success. In fact, we are expanding that model of agriculture. So if the household has food security, it follows that the village will have food security, and it follows that the community will have food security. Once that is done, we move at the second level, where people are regarded as farmers, who now have to be supported through a program where they access loans per each season, summer and winter, in order for them to be productive. Now, we had to analyze and say, how do you make your farm profitable? You must know the cost, if it is summer, from preparation of the hectare, planting, growing of the crop and harvesting. What is the cost? We also have to relate that cost to the price of the crop. So how much should you produce per hectare to meet the cost of running a hectare? Perhaps you may discover that you need, let's say talk about maize, perhaps you need 4 tons or 5 tons. Let's use 4 tons. You need 4 tons per hectare to meet the cost of running a hectare. So if you program yourself to produce 4 tons per hectare, you are not going anywhere because you break even. So then, through agro teachings by the Minister of Agriculture's personnel, you realize that my hectare must give me 4 tons to pay my seasonal loan. You must therefore make sure you have a yield above 4 tons. So if you get 6 tons per hectare, you know that the 4 tons will go towards the running cost per hectare, which include labor, electricity, water, and everything. So if you make 6 tons, we have 2 tons per hectare for your pocket. So when we came here, initially, I think the first 2 years, we were sending about, we were not very clever then. We were sending between 400 to 600 tons per season, if it is summer, to the GMB. With the same land, same area now, per season, we send about 4,000 metric tons. We give Masuka 4,000 metric tons of maize per season. So if the break-even is, say, 5 tons, and we are producing 12 tons per hectare, arithmetic anymore in marino pocket. In summer, we grow maize and soya. Like now, you've seen the maize, you've seen the soybeans. We said all those who wanted to go around, we prepared the road for you. All those who wanted to go around should have been able to do so. There was no restriction. And I'm sure by looking at the crop, just by eyes, you can realize that the yield is quite high. So, Honorable Minister of Agriculture is expecting us, I think, another 4,000 metric tons of maize to give him. But of course, then you go to soya beans. Again, the same model of calculation. You just don't grow a crop without knowing whether you make a profit or not. And the same model of calculation must be done. What is the cost of running a hectare, growing a hectare of soybeans? To cover your labor, your tractor preparation, your diesel, everything can be put together. Then you say you need X amount of money to run a hectare. So that you can then multiply by 10 hectares, by 100 hectares, by 200 hectares. You now know the cost. But then you say, what should I do to have yield above the break-even level? Once you have done that, you aim to grow a crop giving a yield per hectare above breaking even. And here we've done it. I can assure you that both in terms of winter cropping, in terms of summer cropping, we have looked at the records of the former farmer, and in many areas we are about 5 times more or better. And his son, who is just across my neighbor here, is also, because we share notes now, is doing well too. Now, having put aside the theory many people think that farming is not profitable, it is if you're organized. The danger is the more you become so successful, as my brother is not here, he's gone out, Patrick, who runs this place, my youngest brother, is that you get tempted to leave politics because you can make money here. We also have horticulture, which supplements with cattle, animal husbandry here. Yes, what we are told by Comrade Dr. Masuka, that the country is in several ecological regions. It is critically important to know your ecological region so you grow what is correct. And the Minister of Agriculture will tell you what to do to know your ecological region and to know the type of crops you ought to grow. And if you follow their advice, most likely you're going to do well. But with us here, me and my brother, we listen to them, but they went to school too much. There are areas where they are more theoretical, but we are very practical. Sometimes we advise them from the practical side. But kuti urime chinoryiwa haunyanyi kutevedza zviri mubhuku. We began what we call value addition. Value addition. So here, every summer, as I've said, in summer we grow maize and soya, and of course horticulture is throughout the year. Now, with maize, we have, for the last 22 years now, from 2 years ago now, we now have a milling company. We grow our maize, we sell to GMB, we buy from GMB to put it through our milling company for processing. When it comes to wheat, we also have a bakery. We send in excess of 2,000 metric tons of wheat to GMB. Then we have our own bakery. This is why my brother and our uncle, we said everybody who comes here today, as you come here, each one came here, you our visitors, you must receive a loaf of bread and a drink. Everything is from here. Apana chabva kumwe. Last night I talked to my brother and said, how many loaves have you put aside for the visitors? He says, Mdara, I've put 30,000 loaves aside. Kuti mwene umwe achiuya pano anopuwa loaf yake yechingwa nedrink. Hatina kutenga, takarima. This is how it should be. Kana anga wasina kupa veku ministry we agriculture vazotitsigiramo. Each one who is a farmer here, you could be a village communal farmer as long as you have somewhere to do your agriculture, as you will be given a package of seed to go and use at home. That's a donation from the ministry, as well as you see all these other SIDCO and so on. They've contributed to giving these packages to you. Beyond that, Zimbabwe became independent in 1980. And the primary grievance of our revolution was our land. So there would be no fulfillment of our revolution without us owning the land. This is why with land reform, now it is behind us, it will never be reversed. It is in our hands. Our task, our challenge is to make it productive. And the government must assist our farmers of every level to be productive. We must modernize, we must mechanize for us to be self-sufficient. It's a priority of our government, our people, to be food secure. We are now in the second year of being food secure. We will never again, under the systems and model of agriculture we've introduced, that we shall ever again be food insecure. Because we now have, I've asked my people, Vana, Minister of Agriculture and his experts, to say how many hectares in this country should be under irrigation in order to produce enough for a year for the nation plus half. And they've made that calculation. So we have a program to make sure that number of hectares are under irrigation. We are doing this because of climate change. There is no guarantee anymore that we have enough rainfall each year. So whether there's rainfall or not, as long as we have water bodies, and we have over 10,000 water bodies in this country, we also have a program now of dam construction. This is designed to guarantee us food security to mitigate against climate change, and we have now succeeded. Atichafi takaita nzara, mvura yakasonaya, mindi atiri kudiridza yakawanda kutipa enough food for ourselves. Yes, we will continue increasing hectarage under irrigation. I'm happy to say that first, we are a very modest people as a people of Zimbabwe. We are most welcoming. We are friends to all and an enemy to none as our foreign policy. Hatina watinovenga isatiri kuvengwavo, vanenge vativenga inte zvokwavo. We are friends to all, enemy to none. Our primary focus is one, to be food secure. Number two, we want to develop, modernize our country. How do we do it? We say there are countries called the first world countries, second world countries, and third world countries. We are in the third world countries. Those who have developed their countries on the basis of applying science, technology, and innovation. This is why we have now introduced Education 5.0, which embraces and promotes science, technology, and innovation. All our universities today, they have innovation hubs, where our young girls and boys who are talented have the opportunity of exercising their minds to produce either a product or a service for their nation, for their parents, for their country. That does not offend anybody. If anybody gets offended because we are producing our own goods or our own services, we still sleep in peace. So we are determined to make sure that Zimbabwe does not remain behind in the digital world of tomorrow. This is why we have the Minister of ICT. We are making sure all our schools, since the Second Republic, we have built schools, and we are making sure we give computers to primary and secondary schools in the countryside, so there's no difference whether a child is being educated in the rural side or in town. They all have computers. You always see my little minister, the short one, distributing computers countrywide, because we want all our kids at every level to have access to technology, access to science and technology and innovation. When we do that, we also make sure we are competitive. Our students, when they finish university, there's demand for them beyond our borders. Most of our talented boys and girls in medicine, mathematics, in aerospace science, they are taken away. And we don't bother. We continue producing. We began a process of space science 3 years ago, which none of us dreamed before. But because of the promotion of science and technology at our universities, we said, let us also branch into aerospace technology. And we are now one of the few third world countries in space. We don't borrow information about weather to guide us in our agricultural policies, because we get facts from our own spacecraft in space. Anyway, today's day is field day. So, Mazimambo, our chiefs, you have the burden to make sure that the communities you lead should embrace the philosophy of self-sufficiency in the production of food. We give you free inputs under the Pfumvudza model. We have just discovered now, instead of digging holes, the Minister of Agriculture, now there is an instrument which digs holes for you. In a year or two, we should be distributing this. So that instead of you digging, you just walk, you press a button, and the hole is dug. Science and technology. And we uplift the ordinary household at that level, from poverty to prosperity. They must have enough food and surplus. We have a program. I asked my minister to count the villages in this country. He said there are 35,000 villages. We have now decided to buy 100 rigs, and I understand 40 have already arrived, rigs, so that each single village in this country in 2 years, there will be a solar-powered ball. A solar-powered ball. And the program has already begun. The program has already begun. Then our women, young people, instead of loitering in town, they can now create production in the countryside, because electricity is now being provided. Solar, water is getting available. Let me talk about wheat. For the rest of the history which we know, or from the time we began eating bread, we never produced enough wheat to make bread in the country. We had to import the wheat. We had to import the fertilizer. So I sat down with my ministers of agriculture and science and technology, and these guys are here. Professor Murira is here. I think, is he around? There's Professor Murira of science and technology, and there's Dr. Masuka Sumuka of agriculture. And I said, you, professor, students must study subjects which produce products. We still allow people to study religion, but we want students to study, to uplift the lives of our people. What we eat, we must produce. What we wear, we must produce. What we put on, we must produce. The hats we put on, everything you are putting on. Unless our science people say this we are not able to do, then we must import from other countries. We have listed over 3,000 items which we import. And looking at them, we find that most of those items, we have the materials in this country. And of course, during our time when we were in school, we were taught either to be a clerk at a shop, or a teacher, or a nurse. Beyond that, it was forbidden territory. No, it has changed. You have heard the Dr. Basera saying that our agriculture within the last 4 years has grown from about 2.something billion to 8 billion. Our mining sector from 4 years ago was at 2.8 billion. This year, we are clocking 12 billion. We are growing. Yes, sanctions have been imposed on us. Initially, we were worried about sanctions. Now we realize they are a blessing, because we can now think outside the box. And in all our planning, there is no, if you talk about sanctions, we are planning, we send you out of the room. We have to use our domestic resources to develop our country, brick by brick, stone upon stone. Yes, we don't have all the skills we need. We don't have all the competencies we need. We don't have all the technology we need. But all these things can be acquired and be domesticated. What is required is for us to be proud, whether we are poor. Be proud that you are Zimbabwean. Love your neighbor. The Lord above blesses those nations who love others, who promote peace, who promote harmony. We are by nature a very peaceful people. Violence is alien to us. We have heard my vice president saying we are going for harmonized elections very soon. We must maintain this peace, this tranquility, this unity which we are enjoying. Yes, sanctions were imposed on us with the view of creating this harmony among the people so there could be regime change. At one stage, it almost succeeded, but now the reverse is what is happening. We are getting more and more united. But as you realize, in Shona, we say, in a family, not all members of the family will pull in the same direction. One or two will pull in the opposite direction. This happens in our country. That does not make us lose sleep. In fact, we sleep better if we know who are pulling the wrong direction. So, Amazangu, atibatanei nyika ndedu inovakwa nesu. Inovakwa nesu. Hakuna chavaka nyika Zimbabwe besides the Zimbabwean people themselves. However, on this planet, there are several countries, several nations. The Japanese, perhaps the Japanese ambassador is here. The Japanese built and developed Japan. The Americans developed America. The British developed Britain. The Germans the same. The Russians, in spite of what is happening now, they developed Russia. And if there is anybody here who think that Zimbabwe should not be developed by Zimbabweans but by other countries, find some water and baptize him in the name of the Lord. In the name of Jesus Christ, who gave us this country. No one asked for us to be in Zimbabwe, but the Lord selected us here to be in Zimbabwe between Zambezi and Limpopo. Others are in Mozambique. It's the Lord who said they must be in Mozambique. Others are in Portugal. It's the Lord who said they must be Portuguese in Portugal. So, be proud of your country. Be remembered for building your country, not for destroying your country. Be remembered for uniting people, not for disuniting people. Be remembered for building and not for destroying. Be remembered for preaching peace and not for preaching hate. So, according to our Shona culture, if a man or a woman in his life or her life preach peace, unity, and harmony, when they die, we sweep the grave where we bury them. We continuously sweep around the grave. But those who are found to be destructive, when they die, we plow crops on the grave. So who among you would want to be the last example? I, for one, would want to be remembered for peace, for unity, for production, for developing our country. And the evidence is there. Mabona kuti makwatinoitaka uko. Vamwe vanoti muningina ndianongorima ari pano Patrick waenda kuchikafu. Every Sunday, sometimes the vice president complains kuti mdarambo restaivo kuti ndiene ndomuti this weekend no resta ndoti nzve ndouya ndoti nzve ndouya. Every Sunday I'm here. Topedza 4-5 hours tichironga zvokuita. And musambo sapasi dzidziso yamunopiwa namadomeni enyu nevekusidhiko. Kune chirwere chapinda munyika medu. I would want all of us in our individual capacities, collective capacities, as leaders in our respective communities like chiefs, headmen, and village heads, and business people, the drug abuse in this country. We must fight drug abuse at the family household level, the community level, district level, upwards. We must fight it. It's not an issue which you say the government must fight. All of us, let us fight drug abuse. Is destroying our younger generation. Our boys and girls are getting destroyed, but we must fight it. Expose those who sell it, or those who trade, or those who bring it in this country. Must be exposed and be arrested. I've given instructions to the police that kungowana kastika takura. Kungowana kastika takura mukande mu police Land Rover. Paanenga apepuka otu wakasuta wakapiwa nani. Akangodudza hamba tate na faka mjere. only way we have to fight drug abuse. Chimwe, recently, I'm told by security and provincial ministers, Wangu, a tendency is coming up of bullying in schools, both day schools as well as boarding schools, where kids, our children, bully each other, bullying. That should stop Feretu. I'm told in some instances, kids kill each other. They fight and so on. That should stop. The parents should tell their children not to participate in bullying. We are looking at how to deal with this issue, and either the school or school management found wanting, we have to deal with them. And also we need to look at those who bully others. Then they must find their schools which they build themselves so that they can bully themselves among bullies. That must stop. We need peace from the grassroots up to the apex of the country. We can't preach peace everywhere and then you have kids killing each other. I also want to urge our churches, all churches in this country. We know that churches preach peace and love. As they do so, I would ask them to emphasize the issue against bullying, the issue of drug abuse. I also want to say the churches must come in and assist to educate our people so we stop these things. We have heard Comrade Vice President describing what happened in the late 40s and 50s, where in what is called Shabani now, Shabani, LDO means Land Development Officer. They came to our village. I was a little boy at that time in the 40s. And they were destocking cattle. So if we had a lot of head, say 60 head and so on, they would reduce and only allow to keep a quarter of that. But here was an old woman, a widow. She had only 5 cattle. Then this young man, a white boy, reduced the number of